Wow, you guys really sent us some fascinating stuff this time around. This whole idea of a shift in time and space versus a sudden shift in time and space. I mean, it seems subtle, right?
It does, yeah.
But when you really start digging into it, the implications are kind of huge. And what's really cool is that the sources you sent cover so much ground. We've got examples from like everyday life all the way to these virtual worlds. It's amazing to see how this one tiny word, sudden, can completely change how we understand things.
It's true. It really highlights the power of language.
Exactly. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump right in and unpack all of this.
Okay, great.
So first things first, when we talk about a shift in time and space, what are we really talking about here?
At its core, it's about change, affecting both when something happens, so the temporal aspect, and where it happens, the spatial aspect.
Right. So it's like a change in our orientation to time and space.
Exactly. It's like you're moving on a map and a timeline all at once.
And what I find interesting is that the phrase itself doesn't tell us anything about the speed or the way this change happens, right?
Right. One of the sources even points this out specifically. It just says a change occurs, but it's totally silent on the how.
Like it could be this slow, gradual thing, or it could be relatively fast. But the phrase a shift doesn't give us that information.
Exactly.
And there's some great examples of this in the sources. Like think about someone who's planning to move to a new city.
Oh, yeah. Good one.
One of the AI perspective sources actually uses that example. It says, after months of planning their move to the new city, represented a significant shift in time and space.
I like that.
And it makes sense, right? You've got the new location, that's the spatial change, then you've got the whole new routine and daily life, that's the temporal change.
Yeah.
But it's all happening intentionally and over a period of time.
Precisely. There's a sense of unfolding of things gradually falling into place.
And we could even see this on a larger scale, like with the rise of remote work.
Oh, that's a great example.
I mean, one of the sources describes it as a more gradual, widespread societal change. But there's no denying that it led to a massive shift in when and where people work.
Absolutely. Offices became less central, commutes changed drastically, and the whole structure of the workday shifted for a lot of people.
But it wasn't like someone flipped a switch overnight. It happened over time.
Right. It was an evolution, not a revolution.
And even on a personal level, think about getting married and building a life together.
Ooh, yeah.
That definitely involves a shift in time and space.
Definitely. You're creating this shared home, this shared space, and a shared rhythm for your lives.
Right. And the sources point out that establishing that shared home and routine takes time and adjustment. You're intertwining your lives gradually.
Yeah, it's a beautiful example of a shift that unfolds over time.
So we've been talking about this in the context of our everyday world, but what about when we move into virtual environments? How does this idea of a shift play out there?
That's an interesting question. So in virtual environments, we see similar principles at work.
Oh?
Like imagine a game world that transitions to a new season.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that in tons of games.
It changes the look of the digital landscape. That's the spatial aspect. And it often introduces new events and changes the gameplay schedule, the temporal aspect.
Right, like suddenly there are holiday-themed quests or the in-game weather changes.
Exactly. And even though it happens at a specific time, usually programmed into the game, it's often anticipated by the players.
They know it's coming.
Right. It's part of the game's rhythm.
Or think about a player moving their avatar to a different sector of the game.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's a conscious choice to shift their location in the virtual world and maybe even the in-game time context if the new area has a different time zone or something.
Yeah, that's a really deliberate shift.
So it's like saying, the car moved. We know it changed its position, and that changes its relationship to other things in space and maybe even time. But we don't know if it was a leisurely Sunday drive or a quick trip to the grocery store.
I like that analogy. It captures the essence of a shift without specifying the how.
Okay, so now that we have a good grasp on a shift, let's bring in that crucial word, sudden.
Okay, here we go.
What happens when we start talking about a sudden shift in time and space?
Well, the addition of sudden is the game changer, literally. It immediately tells us that something happened abruptly and drastically in both time and space.
So no more gradual unfolding.
Exactly. It's like a hard cut in a film. You're in one place in one moment, and then boom, you're somewhere else entirely.
And that element of surprise seems really important too, right?
It's crucial. The sources actually highlight how sudden often implies that the change was unexpected.
And they give some pretty powerful real-world examples.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, imagine getting an amazing job offer, but it requires you to relocate immediately.
That's a big one.
It forces this sudden change in location and a huge disruption of your daily routine. There's no time for leisurely planning.
Mm.
It's all about adapting to this new reality, both where you are and how you live your life.
Right. You go from one tempo to another in a heartbeat.
And then you have even more dramatic examples like an earthquake.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
One of the sources describes it as a catastrophic event causing immediate and dramatic change. It's instant. In one moment, familiar landscapes are destroyed. That's the spatial shift. And in the same moment, daily routines are completely upended. That's the temporal shift.
It's a stark reminder of how vulnerable we are to these kinds of sudden shifts.
And how much our sense of stability depends on the predictability of our environment and our schedules.
Absolutely. When those foundations are shaken, it can be incredibly disorienting.
There's also this really interesting psychological example about the sudden realization that you're being followed.
Oh, yeah, that one's fascinating.
The source talks about how it causes this sudden shift in your perception of time and space. Suddenly your surroundings feel threatening. That's a change in how you experience your environment, a spatial shift. And time itself can seem to warp. It feels like things are slowing down as your senses go into overdrive.
It's like your brain is trying to process everything at once.
It's amazing to think about how a purely internal psychological shift, triggered by something happening outside of you, can have such a powerful impact on your perception of time and space.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of our internal and external worlds.
And it makes you wonder if this kind of response has an evolutionary basis, like maybe it's a survival mechanism that kicks in when we sense danger.
That's a fascinating thought.
So we've seen how sudden plays out in the real world, but what about in virtual environments?
Okay, back to the digital realm.
How does this idea of sudden manifest in those spaces?
Well, the virtual examples really showcase that instantaneous aspect of a sudden shift.
Okay.
Think about a teleportation device in a game.
Oh, yeah.
One moment, the player's in one location, and the next, they're somewhere else entirely. It's an immediate spatial transition with zero travel time.
It's like blinking and you're in a new place.
Exactly. And it's a total contrast to the experience of moving through the game world step by step.
It's the complete absence of that in-between state.
Precisely. And then there's the example of a game glitch that causes unexpected disorientation and environmental changes.
Oh, yeah, those can be jarring.
This isn't a planned transition. It's an abrupt, unintended alteration of the game's rules.
So it messes with the spatial aspect and potentially the temporal aspect, too.
Right, and it often catches the player completely off guard. It disrupts the expected flow of the game and their sense of how the game world works.
It's like being dropped into a totally different situation without any warning.
Precisely. And it's the opposite of that anticipated seasonal change we talked about earlier.
Right. Instead of knowing it's coming, it just happens out of nowhere.
Exactly. And the VR example of suddenly transitioning to a completely different environment is really powerful, too.
Oh, yeah. VR can definitely mess with your sense of reality.
One moment, you might be immersed in a peaceful forest, and the next, you're on a spaceship. It's immediate, immersive, and a complete change in both your surroundings and the timeline of the experience.
It's like your brain is trying to catch up to what your senses are telling you. So if a shift is like saying the car moved, then a sudden shift is more like saying the car screeched to a halt.
Oh, I like that.
It's this immediate cessation of movement, this jarring change in momentum and location.
Or it could be like the car suddenly accelerated.
Right, a sudden burst of speed that changes your location rapidly.
Both of those analogies really capture the immediacy and the lack of gradual progression that defines a sudden shift.
Exactly. The sources really emphasize that distinction.
They do, and I think it's a crucial point to understand.
So for everyone listening out there, paying attention to this seemingly small linguistic difference can actually make a big difference in how you interpret information.
I completely agree.
Whether you're reading a news report about a sudden political upheaval that causes mass displacement, which is a real and devastating example of a sudden shift in time and space for those affected.
Absolutely.
Or you're trying to make sense of the rapidly changing digital world, recognizing the difference between a gradual shift and a sudden one can help you grasp the magnitude and the nature of the change.
Yeah. It helps you understand the pace and the predictability, or the lack thereof, in the transformations that are happening all around us.
It's about seeing the world with a more nuanced perspective.
Precisely.
Now, this whole discussion has got me thinking about something else.
Oh, it's that.
We've been talking about external events, but what about internal shifts?
Interesting.
Like how our own internal state can influence our perception of time and space.
Oh, yeah, like how time can seem to fly by when you're completely absorbed in something.
Exactly, or how it can drag on forever when you're anxious or bored.
It's incredible how our internal experience can warp our sense of time.
So I wonder how these internal shifts might intersect with our understanding of external shifts, especially as we become more and more intertwined with virtual and AI-driven environments.
That's a really profound question. It makes you think about how our relationship with time and space might evolve as technology advances.
It's definitely something to ponder.
It is, and I think it highlights how important it is to be aware of our own internal states and how they might be shaping our perceptions.
That's a great point to end on.
It is.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into what started as a seemingly simple question, but turned into a really fascinating exploration of language perception and the nature of change.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope this has given you all some food for thought and maybe even a new appreciation for the power of words.
I hope so.
Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep those sources coming.
This is DigitView.